Hello and welcome to the JTrain podcast. It's a Chit Chat Wednesday. I'm coming to you live from Adelaide, Australia to introduce today's episode with Intimacy with Leandra. Leandra Petrov is an intimacy coach, a sex and relationship coach. I loved this episode. It's exactly what I want to do on Chit Chat Wednesday, to bring on an expert to explain to me, the dummy, what they are an expert in. And Leandra, I just love the idea of being an expert in intimacy. And because I'm sitting there going, I don't even know what is the definition of intimacy. And I think starting at, square one makes this an easier conversation. And it might be somewhere that you're maybe embarrassed to start with your partner, with a professional. So let me do it. So I want you to enjoy today's episode. It is fantastic. Just a really fun talk, an open talk that maybe you'd be a little bit embarrassed to have or don't have access to the person to have it. So enjoy today's episode with Leandra. Welcome to the new JTrain podcast. Hello and welcome to the JTrain podcast. This is JTrain, Jared Freid, coming to you live from the West Village of Manhattan. That's right, every Wednesday is a Chit Chat Wednesday where I talk with a comedian, a friend, an expert. Today, we have one of three, but I can already tell we're already becoming fast friends. They are a certified somatica, sex and relationship coach, and you can find them on their website, intimacywithleandra.com. Leandra Petrov, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited you're here. I'm so excited to talk to you because I think the world of sex and relationship coaching is something that people hear about, they have their assumptions and, they move on with their day. And, I think, it's my opinion that we remember kind of like one thing, when people think comedian, they think of one thing. And that's why Coca-Cola has commercials on TV. They want you to think every time you want a soda, you think of Coca-Cola. So you think of the one thing. So can you explain I don't even know if I pronounced it right. Certified somatica, sex and relationship coach. What is that?
Yeah. So Somatica is just the Somatica Institute, which is where I got my certification. So that's the brand name. But basically what it is, it's somatic sex and relationship coaching.
Okay.
So somatic just means of the body. So it's more like experiential practices and things that you can like touch can be involved in my work if it's in person. And it's just you can practice things more in real time. It goes further than just sort of talking about it, if that makes sense.
So it's involving actual physical strategies to make you more intimate with your partner.
Yeah, or it can be intimacy with partner. I also work with individuals. I do both individuals and couples work. And it can be a really wide range of pretty much any challenge that anyone's facing under the umbrella of sex, relationships, intimacy, and dating. So it's a really wide range of things that I work with.
Well, it is interesting because I want to zone in on, and I do have questions based on single people and couples because I kind of thought of that before, but intimacy is this kind of vague word. Again, going back to what do people think of when they hear a single thing? They think of one thing. If you were to define intimacy, how would you define it as someone who works in the intimacy game every day? Because I was thinking about it before you came on. I'm I kind of especially at 39, or I'm now 40 when this comes out, and I'm dating, and I'm I want to be intimate with someone or find that quicker. And maybe back when I was 22 or 25, 29, I kind of had it didn't even cross my mind. And now it's well, I just want to kind of skip a couple levels. Skip sounds bad, but I want to get to the intimate stuff. So how would you define intimacy, and what do people think it is? And I kind of direct us, lead us, on that word.
Yeah, so it is a word that is like can be very vague, and I think a lot of people use it um, as a way to really just say sex without having to say the word sex.
Interesting, because when I think of intimacy, I'm like I've had a lot, especially recently. Um, I think as a guy, we're accused of like we don't open up, and I'm like trying to open up differently on a first date, not in like a not even the sex way, just to like be like, hey, let's start really talking. I don't want to like. I don't care about your day. I do care about your day, but I want it to like be how I would talk about a day with a friend. And I know that takes trust. So I find sometimes you're on a date with someone who's guarded. They're like, if I give in to them soon, then I might hurt from this if it ends. I think that's the fear, especially if I'm dating people in their 30s, so I think women, like, there's a little bit like, I've done this before. I've given too much too soon. And now, like I'm not, and I can feel it on my end. So as far as like intimacy, like person to person, like how would, how do you even define it that way?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that like for me, I people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I want help with intimacy." And I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean? Like what kind of intimacy are you talking about like sex or are you talking about emotional intimacy?"
Right.
Because there's physical intimacy and there's emotional intimacy in my head, and I view it as like you need to have like good emotional intimacy as like a prerequisite to like good physical intimacy. 'Cause I'm sure we've always had like all of us have had sort of like empty sexual experiences where there was like no like emotional or like any kind of like connection. It was just
Right.
like sort of very like transactional. And that can feel like there's nothing wrong with that if it's fulfilling, but I think for most people it's not actually fulfilling. And so as they get, sort of like in their 30s and they're, they like later in life, they're looking for like, okay, let's go backwards. Like, how do I actually like connect emotionally with someone? And then the result of that is that it does make the sex like a lot better as well.
So this is kind of brings me to one of the questions I wrote down for you. I love that you distinguish emotional intimacy and physical intimacy, and like it seems like you're saying one leads to the next. They're connected.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's one thing a single person can do on a first date to kind of jumpstart emotional intimacy? What would be
hmm
like a line you would use, or maybe like a question that might get people to open up? And I'm like, I'm semi asking for myself, but I'm sure there's people out there like me that they're like, I just want like an arrow in my sheath, so to speak.
hmm
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say like ask questions that could lead to like vulnerability. So
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability is really the key to like emotional intimacy. So if you can get someone to start opening up about something that's like a little bit challenging to talk about, that's a really good like way to start to like get in there, so to speak. So it can be like, ask them about their family. Like a lot of us have like challenging, family dynamics that we can talk about. And or it can be like I love this one because it's kind of like playful, but it can also lead to something is like who were you in high school? Like what,
Ooh.
like stuff like that that's like a little deeper than like, so like what TV shows do you watch or like things like that, just like something that can lead to potentially to something that's a little more vulnerable of a share and then
Mm-hmm.
gauge their reaction to it.
I would
And
call these
that's,
like second drink questions. Like,
yeah, that's,
like I think
yeah.
like I'm binging this, TV show. I was just at home with my family. Oh yeah, let's get another drink. Okay, who were you in high school? Like I think that's like the moment that you're, to me, is that fair to be like, hey,
Yeah.
have to be kind of like comfortable enough to have these questions?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you don't want like the very first thing you say to be like, okay, let's like you don't want to like scare them away. But like yeah, if you're to the point where it's like second drink and you're like second drink equals like, yes, I'm feeling this, like I want to get to know you more, let's go a little
Right.
bit further.
Second drink can, that's it. I think that's a fun way to look at a date. Like second drink questions is, yeah, we've agreed. There's been a yes involved. Like I'm
Yeah.
giving consent to this next thing. If you want to really like get down in the weeds on languaging, So, okay, so you're on this first. So what's the best thing that like, okay, so another question I had is, what do people have the biggest issue revealing? Like, what's the thing that they come to you and you're like, you're not doing this one thing. You need to be concentrating on this.
It really depends on like, because like I said, I work with such a wide range of like issues. So it's super individualized to like each person. And that's a big part of what I do is like kind of get into that first session and like try to get sort of like under the hood, so to speak, of like what's really going on underneath. But I do find that a lot of times it is like just like fear of emotional intimacy, and at the core of that is like fear of getting hurt, right? So
Right.
that tends to block people in a lot of different ways.
Everyone's got to go follow Leandra Petrov at Intimacy with Leandra, intimacywithleandra.com. That is where you can sign up for a free call and classes and or schedule coaching and stuff like that. So you sit with someone who's single. Are they coming to you because they want the physical intimacy that they're not finding? Or like, what would a single, because I would think that a sexual coach, it's more like partners. Like, I guess why would a single do you find that the single people are coming to you like for help with emotional intimacy, and the couples are coming to you for help with like, figure this out, what we're missing here? Is that kind of like the breakup?
I mean, with couples, it is actually often emotional intimacy as well, but what usually gets them in the door very often is like either some type of sexual dysfunction that's happening, and or like, hey, we've been together, 5, 10, 20, 30 years, and like we're not having sex anymore. Like the sex has gone out of the marriage. Like, how can we get it back? And oftentimes it's like mismatched desire. Like one person seemingly like wants sex and the other one doesn't have the desire for it. That's a lot of like the typical couple stuff. With individuals, it can really vary. It's sometimes it's a lot of like dating help, just like someone who doesn't feel experienced enough in like dating and they just want like a guide in that. It can be, someone who's lacking confidence and wants to, work with that. It can be like trauma related stuff.
How do you guide, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, how do you guide
Okay.
someone who is like trying to get into dating? Like where do you even begin with someone like that? Like, is it like that they just want to get back in the game and they need someone to like help them out? Like, is it helping them with their dating app? Is it, what is it?
Yeah, so it can be helping with the dating app and like, just talking about how dates are going and like trying to sort of like troubleshoot like what's going on. A lot of times though, what I first start with is like figuring out like why they feel the lack of confidence or like where the struggle's coming from in the first place. And like some people yeah, they were in a relationship for a long time and then they took a really long break because they were scared of getting hurt again and they need help like opening up again.
Yeah.
Or it can be like someone who's not had a lot of experience at all. Like maybe it's someone who's, never been in a relationship or like never had sex before and like is in their head about, that they don't feel that they've had enough experience in this realm and they want to like have some tools and skills like before they just kind of like go in like
Right. How do you talk to someone who's never had sex before? Like, where do you begin? Like, is it like education at that point? Is it like, let me take out the map, like from the 80s with like, and show you a penis or a vagina? Like is it like that?
So it can be. It's
Yeah.
it's like everything I do is sort of like a multi-pronged approach, right? So like part of it is like, okay, let's literally look at like what parts are where and make sure that we know where things are. Let's, here's like the basic like skills, the tips and tricks that I can teach you of like generally what to do, but then ultimately it's a lot of like how to communicate with each individual partner because everyone's going to want something different. And being comfortable with that communication piece is really, really big. And then it's a lot of like what's going on emotionally, like what's holding you back emotionally, and like how can we like dive into that and see what we can resolve there because it's there's something that's blocking.
I keep thinking of like men, like the men who need you most probably don't go to you. Like, like it's like one of those, catch 22s, like, because the people that are coming to you are probably like wildly curious and optimistic at a certain point, and they really want to be better. They want to like really be a good partner to someone, even when they don't know who that partner is going to be. But like, I'm sure every man would like, especially straight men would like benefit from like this type of like coach up. Like I you know what I mean? Like I think like probably most of the women that come to you are because they were like with a guy who wasn't ready to be intimate. And then they're like, hey, how do I figure out the next person that won't be intimate? Is that correct? Or am I crazy?
Yeah, with women, it's usually a lot of like low sexual desire.
Really?
That tends to be like the sort of like the most common thing. It can also be like dating or like lack of experience. It can be a lot of like, women are socialized to sort of like have sexual shame like built in from like a very, very early age. And that's actually how I got to this place. Like I was working through my own sexual shame from childhood. And like it's a lot of sort of like de-shamifying like what we've been taught and like the experiences that we've had. There also may be like trauma, like sexual trauma
Right.
involved, or like assault or things like that need to be like worked through. So it's a lot of just like unpacking like the shame and like how can we like sort of reclaim the body and like move past, what's blocking here.
If there's someone who is dealing with low sexual desire, like what's the first thing how do you start with someone like that? Like where do you go?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different reasons that low desire can happen. The number one though is resentment.
Okay.
So a lot of times when couples come to me and they're like, we're not having sex anymore, it's not always, but more often than not, it's the female half of that, if it's a hetero couple, that is just like lost desire. And in all relationships, like resentment is going to build over time. And if you're not like actively having like repair conversations to sort of like dissolve the resentment as you go, then it really, really builds up. And then 5, 10 years later, it's like the bedroom's gone totally cold because there's all this resentment. And so the first thing I do is like tap into like where are we holding resentment and like can we start to like repair that? And
Where
that
does it
usually
normally
helps.
come from? Like what is it like? Is it a simple place or is it more complex? Is it like you don't do anything to help keep this home afloat? Like, is it that, or is it like I resent you for like? I'm sure you've seen it all. Like I'm sure there's like there's cheating that they stayed together and that's part of it. But like, is there like what's like a little thing that people get resentful for that like starts it? What's the seed?
Yeah. So it really can be like any of those things that you mentioned. It's just like anything. So like there's a lot of people that like just when things bother them, they just sort of like brush them under the rug instead of talking about them. And that's what builds resentment. And so oftentimes I have people coming in and they're like fighting about something still that happened like years ago that they're still both holding resentment about, but it's never like about that thing. So like let's say there's like a stupid example of like he never takes the trash out,
Right.
right? Like on the surface, like, and even the couple might think like, oh, this is like a fight about the trash. But it's not, it's never about like that thing. It's always
Right.
about like the emotions that come out when that isn't done. So maybe it's like when you do this, I don't feel like you respect, what I'm asking you to do, or I don't feel like you care for me, or like, like something as simple as like taking the trash out. For each person, it might mean something else.
Well,
So
I have to add, it's so hard. It's time to make feeling good easy. Ditch the boring guided medication. It's time to make feeling good easy. Ditch the boring guided meditations and the apps. All you need is Via. Via is combining high-quality hemp-derived ingredients with powerful cannabinoids to create serious results. Whether you want more focus, better sleep, or a boost in your love life, Via has you covered. Here's what I love about Via. They have a marketplace. You have your own thing going on. You might be looking to be a little bit more creative. You might be looking to make things a little bit more fun in the bedroom. Maybe you're looking for someone to help you sleep. Via has all of that for you. Go to their website, check out what they have, and we're going to give you a deal. So I love it. I'm not a big, gummy person, but if you're in that world, this is such a great way to change it up. Maybe you want something that adds energy. Maybe you want something that lets you, sink into the couch and ooze for a bit. Via is going to have it all. Customize your Via experience by choosing the type of relaxation you're looking for. Exactly what I'm saying. Along with the level of THC you want. With products ranging from 0 to high cannabinoid levels, they have something for everyone. Choose from topicals. Right, if you're not a gummy person, you might be a topical person, gummies, drops, and more. And get ready to relax. So I love what Via is doing because it's giving you options. I have to say, the loved ones... The loved ones are fun just to do with a partner. When you have your mind on that, you guys are going to get experimental, get to know each other in a different way. If you're 21 and older, check out the link to Via in our description. Use code JTrain to receive 15% off, free shipping on your orders of over $100. And if you're new to Via, get a free gift of your choice. So 15% off, free shipping on orders over $100. And if you're new to Via, get a free gift of your choice. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Enhance your everyday with Via. So that's code JTrain. And the link is in the description of this episode. Enjoy.
It's so hard. I'm thinking it's so hard to be like in a fight about the trash and then like to like turn to someone and go, what is this actually about? Like no one ever does that, like
Right.
I once someone I do like a question box on my Instagram and someone asked me a question way back when, and I always thought this was a good idea, but I'm sure no one would do it, is if you had like a peaks and pits date with your partner, like if once a month you got together for like a date night and before the date night, like this is like so dumb, but it's like I feel like this would like turn me on and get communication going at the same time. If you had 2 letters for your partner and it was like the one thing you were angry about with them that month, and then the other letter was the one thing you were turned on by them that month, and there was like no shame, like you just like and you both started with your angry and you like talked it out, and then you ended with their turn on, or like something that was on your mind. I was like, I always thought that would be a good idea, but it feels like so. I'm sure there's someone married 10 years who's listening like, fuck off. Like, I have no time to do this. Like, I understand how, like, this is a dreamt up scenario, but I mean, is there something like that like would help a couple? Like, would that be fun for them to do? Is that the dumbest thing you've ever heard?
That sounds fun, and it sounds like a more playful way of sort of having what we call like a relationship, like check-in conversation. So a lot of people will like have either a weekly or a monthly or a bi-weekly, whatever, like check-in where they're like, hey, like, how are things going? Is there anything that's bothering you? Kind of like just
this is so something I would never do. Like I'm saying this as the guy who would never do it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah. So like if it's more fun and appealing to have it be sort of like a playful, alliterative like thing that you can talk about your turn-ons and your anger, if that, do what you need to do to make it sound fun. But
Right.
ultimately it is like, it's really, really great idea actually to have like regular check-ins, because if you don't do that, that's when things get built up and built up and built up.
Right.
And over time it turns into resentment, and then desire is lost, and it kind of snowballs.
I'm just thinking of like the couple that's like, fuck off, Jared. I'm not
Yeah.
getting in my Christian Grey suit to like have this like weird sexy candle at night where I talk about my anger and my turn on. I don't know. It's just like, to me, I get like, I think get creative with this stuff, like, okay, I have
Yeah.
more questions. Okay. What do, I want to play a game actually. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to call it intimate or faking it.
Okay.
Okay, intimate or faking it. I'm going to give you
Okay.
a quote. And is this person being intimate, or is it like they're feigning intimacy? Like they think
Okay.
they're being vulnerable, but they're actually not. So it's called intimate or faking it. Here's the quote.
Okay.
I'm going to eat this ice cream even though it'll make me shit my pants.
Hard out of context.
Well, you're on a first date. Okay, I'll give context to it. You're on a first date. You go for ice cream. You have a couple drinks, and then you're like, you want to go get ice cream? Because there's like an ice cream place down the street from me. And then you go, I'll have the salted caramel, and then she orders it, and I'm like, man, this ice cream is like eating a grenade. This will not do me well later tonight. Is that me being intimate, or is that me being like kind of faking it?
I think that's a joke. I don't think that's actual.
So jokes are not intimate.
I mean, I think that
this is very interesting to me because I get in relationships and I make jokes, and sometimes I think it's me avoiding talking to them, and it's not taken like I'm not like I am saying I have stomach issues in that joke, but I'm also like I could also see someone, oh, I guess he's just messing around, right? I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I think that's sort of like, and again, like jokes are great, and it's important to have like playfulness in relationships and be able to like laugh together, but I wouldn't call that like vulnerability.
Okay. I love this. Okay, this is why we're playing the game. Okay, intimate or faking it. I'm on a first date, and we're having our first drink. We're on second drink, okay, like we talked about before. So we're on our second drink, and I say, yeah, I'm looking for a serious relationship. Is that intimate, or is that faking it?
If it's true, then I think it's intimate.
Okay.
If you're really being honest about what you're looking for, then I think that's great.
Well, we have so many listeners that write in that like they say he said he was looking for a serious relationship, and then he acted in a way that didn't feel like they were looking for a serious relationship to me. Mm-hmm. I do agree that a lot of men, especially I speak for myself, like I've been saying I've been looking for a serious relationship for now 18 years, and I've been in relationships. I haven't not had a girlfriend, but at the same time, like I'm sitting here 40 years old, not married, no kids, never been married. So I can understand how from the other side, they're like, that's just a line. But I think most men have and I speak for men because I'm speaking for myself. They have this like, I'm looking for a relationship if the right person convinces me that I should get into that. So I do understand how that sounds like fake intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, if it's authentic and if it's something that, you really want, then I think anything that's authentic is intimate.
Okay.
If it is a line, then that's different.
Right. No, it's authentic to me.
Yeah.
But, the words are easy. So I don't know. I'm being self-reflective. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
I'm on a date with someone. Mm-hmm. Third date. We've had 2 drinks, and they reveal they like it a little rough in the bedroom. Is that intimacy, or is that just talk?
I think that is intimacy because they're taking sort of a risk by saying that because that might scare you away, right? So they're revealing something about themselves that is kind of a vulnerable share.
Okay.
So I would say that's intimate.
Okay. I'm in a marriage of 2 years. Mm-hmm. I go to my wife over dinner, and she's like, what's wrong? We're having dinner. She's like, what's been wrong? You've been cold lately. And I say, our sex isn't where I'd like it to be. Is saying it that way intimate or accusatory? Is it really faking it?
The thing about these things is there's a million different tones you can use. So I think tone matters a lot with something like this.
Let me act it out. I'll do
I'll
do a little bit of improv. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, things aren't really good on my end. Our sex is not where I'd like it to be.
Yeah, extremely accusatory in that
right,
tone.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, let me change the tone. Is this
okay?
Could I say this in an intimate way? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot, and I love you, but I just don't think our sex is where I'd like it to be. What do you feel about that? Is that intimate?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you bring up a great point. Mm-hmm. Tone is important. It's lost over text most of the time, right?
Yes.
Are you finding that a lot of people are just texting too much and that's kind of the cause of their loss of intimacy? Because you bring up tone, like that would be a huge thing.
Yeah, so text is really dicey when you're talking about something that's either vulnerable or like, if you're triggered, is something that's like, there's like some kind of emotional charge around it. You really want to do that ideally in person, if not like on FaceTime or the phone, or even like I love a voice note. Like I use voice notes all the time in like my personal relationships because if I have a lot to say and it's emotionally charged, A, it's just easier to say it into my phone than to type it out. But B, someone's going to hear my tone of voice and they're going to take it the way that I mean it. Rather than
Right.
texting, people can take it a million different ways, right?
Right.
So I think tone is extremely important.
Okay, so we'll do this next one. Okay, I'm the wife. We've been married for 5 years, and my husband just asked me why we don't have sex anymore. Okay, we're having wine on the couch watching Love Is Blind, and he's like, he's like, Jared, we don't have sex anymore. Well, you rarely get me off. Is that a tone thing?
Yeah, that's like super accusatory.
Right.
Yeah.
So that could be said in a tone that actually is inviting, could it? Like you could go, like I would, like what if she said it like this? Well, I haven't been getting off lately, and I don't know how we explore that. Would that be? I guess there's a we in there, so that's helpful.
Yeah, totally. That's a much more intimate way to say it. In general, like come from a place of vulnerability, right? So, and try to avoid like the you language. Like the you is very like blaming and shaming. So it could be something like, yeah, I know what you mean. I've been feeling kind of frustrated because I feel like, I'm not having the level of pleasure that I know that I'm capable of, and I'd love to see if we could explore different ways to make it more pleasurable for both of us.
See, that gets me into another territory that I would think that a lot of couples that come to you, they would be like, they have something in their head that they want to do with their partner, and they don't know how to say it to someone that they've known for a very long time. It's the equivalent of like you've buttoned up the shirt, and then you realize that you've missed a button, and you got to unbutton the whole shirt to get to that. How do you start that conversation? And do you notice that right away when a couple comes to you and they're like, one is like, what's going on? And the other is like, I've been thinking of one thing and I don't know how to tell you this. Is that a big part of like what people come to you for?
In terms of like something they want to try sexually or something like that?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I would think an intimacy coach, a sex coach, oh, we'll go to the sex coach to like have this communication go easier than bringing it up on the couch. Right? I don't know.
Totally. Yeah, so that's a big thing that I do with anyone that I work with, honestly, even singles, but also with couples. A lot of times people aren't having sex or don't desire sex because they don't know what type of sex they want to have, and so they're not getting the type of sex that they want to have. So a big part of what I do is help people discover their core desires and their hottest sexual movie. So their core desires are the feelings that they want to feel during sex, the emotions. We're all going to
Okay.
sex to feel something emotionally, even if we don't think that we are. We are. And then the hottest sexual movie is the ultimate like fantasy, that things that you want to do to get those core desires met. And so one of the things that I do with people is help them figure out what these are for themselves. And then it's with a couple, I'll have a session where I facilitate a conversation between the two of them where they tell each other what these are for them. And then we start to figure out like, okay, what's a hell no? What's a hell yes? Where can we like bridge these desires so we can both make it more likely that you're both going to get what you want in the bedroom?
So it's a little bit of a negotiation. You're like the
Yeah.
what are they called? The
Arbitrator, is that what it is?
maybe
Yeah.
there's a
don't
word
know.
here that.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do they know what a hell no is if they're like, I don't know what, like is it a little bit of like, when you get like tested for allergies and they just give you a little ounce of everything to see like what you are, like, is it that? Are you like, take me through the list, like of like when someone says hell no, is it because they've tried it before, they hated it, or is it like they just can't imagine it?
Yeah, it can be either one. A lot of times, like people have judgment around, sort of like more taboo things. I also work with people on BDSM a lot,
Okay.
and so sometimes there'll be like one person in the couple who like really wants to try out like certain BDSM things, and the other person is like, that sounds really intense to me, like, and there's sort of like there's a bit of like judgment around like why that person wants that, and so there's a lot to work through there. But when I do these like sessions where it's just like, okay, let's share what we found with your core desires and your core desires, and then let's see where we can bridge. Like the first thing I always say is like, just listen without judgment. Like
Right.
there's no pressure for you to do anything just because your partner said that that's something that they're into.
Right. It's very one-sided too. It's a little bit that I could imagine feeling ganged up on. Like if like my partner comes to me with this coach and they're like, the coach is like, "Oh, BDSM, of course." Like, because to some people it's just that, and to the partner they're like probably pumped. They're like, "Oh, finally, someone like sees my side on this." And then there's this other person who's involved, whoever it may be in the relationship. They're like, why am I the issue here? Like, I don't want to do, like, how do you get through that? Like, that's got to be so tough. And like, again, there's like maybe a mortgage here, like it's like
Yeah.
over, like it's like, I don't know, this person is an animal, they're trying to live out their animalistic desires, and the other person's an animal too. And they're going, that's just not how this dog eats,
Yeah. So when I work with couples, what I also do is I work with each person individually. And that's a really good time for me to sort of like, I mean, I'm trying to be as impartial as possible, right?
Right.
Like I don't have, it doesn't ultimately make a difference in my life if you guys end up like trying BDSM or not. Like I'm not like
Right.
the BDSM evangelist over here, but
you're
like,
just trying to find common ground. Like
I'm
I
trying
would
to find
imagine.
common ground. I'm trying to see if there's any aspect that might be interesting to the other person who they might be willing to just like take one step and explore. And again, there's like, it's very important to not have pressure about like, no one wants to feel like they're being changed or whatever. But I do think that like sometimes there's emotional stuff to work through about like, what is the aversion? Like what is underneath? Is it judgment? Is it, childhood trauma? Is it like what are the emotions that are underneath like this? If someone's having a really strong reaction to like something that someone said they're into, like there's emotional stuff going on there, and like let's work through that as well.
I think this whole thing's very interesting. I think it's interesting, like the idea, because intimacy, to go back to like the beginning, like it's a word that everyone just agrees they know, but then everyone has this different definition, or like different feeling around it. So I'm so happy we had you on, Leandra Petrov. I want everyone to go follow Leandra at Intimacy with Leandra, intimacywithleandra.com, where you can book. You said you can book a free call.
Yeah, so if you go to my website, you can book a free call to discuss coaching if you think that it might be right for you. You can also sign up for my mailing list. You'll get a free core desires meditation when you sign up for the mailing list, and then you'll get like blog posts and info about upcoming events and stuff like that.
I absolutely love this. I want everyone to go follow, and all that information is in the description of this episode, both on YouTube and on all the podcast apps. This was fantastic. I'm so happy we met. I want people to sign up, and to me, like I was like, V, our producer, was like, she's like, this woman Leandra is awesome. Like you're gonna, and I think even for someone where they're like afraid of this conversation, just hearing us chit chat about it might get them to go, oh, okay, maybe that's an option for me in my life. And especially single people. I think these single people kind of overlook it. But this was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. We'll be back next week. Boom.